All right. I know this might sound like some tough love today, and honestly, it is because you need to hear this. Love, you have to stop telling this story that's keeping you stuck. Because most women, especially by the time we hit our 40s or 50s, we don't even realize that we have been rehearsing the same old story, the same old identity for years, often decades. It's the same excuses, the same limitations, the same internal script. And until you change what you rehearse in your mind, nothing will change on the outside. Let me show you exactly how this works. The life we're living right now, it's simply a reflection of your internal state. That might sound a little woo-woo, but honestly, it's not. It's science. And here's what most people don't realize. Your brain, our brains, they're wired for familiarity. And this is where it gets a little real and uncomfortable. If you have spent 10, 20, 30 years saying shit like, I've never been good with money, or I always choose the wrong men, or I'm just not that disciplined, or I'm always behind, your brain doesn't argue with you. It just agrees with you. It takes that statement, it treats it as if it's true, and it starts organizing your life and your experiences around it. So every time you repeat that thought or that story, you strengthen it. And you know you're doing it. You go and you talk about it to your friends, you talk about it to your mama, you talk about it to your partner, then you go on the Facebooks and you find other people who think the same way you do or have had the same experiences and you all talk about it. And you continue to reinforce this with your attention. And every single repetition, it strengthens the neural pathways in your brain. And then you start seeing more and more evidence of the story everywhere. So it just becomes this loop. And again, this isn't woo woo, this is neuroscience. Repetition wires our identity. And here's the thing, your thoughts, your beliefs, they aren't necessarily true. They're just well practiced, they're well rehearsed. And here's where we get kind of into like the chicken and the egg kind of scenario. Right, which one came first, my beliefs or the experience? Many people will say things like, well, Melanie, I only believe this because it's true. I have so much evidence of it. And I am not doubting that you have evidence of it. I'm not doubting that it's been true. But here's the thing, the thoughts, they've been rehearsed so many times that now your nervous system expects them. In fact, so the fact that your experiences keep matching your thoughts and your beliefs, that's actually good news. It's actually proof that you are a really powerful manifester because you are getting what you're thinking about. You are creating what you're rehearsing. It just might not be what you want. And that's the problem. We're creating by default. Our thoughts are running around like wild, feral children. And this next part might sting a little bit, but when you don't discipline your mind, you just create your life by default. So here's the real question. If your thoughts are creating your experiences, why? Why are you letting them run amok? Why are you not questioning them? Why are you not disciplining them? For most people, our mind is like a house with no one home. It's almost like that movie, Home Alone from the 90s, the Christmas movie, right? The kids like left home to do whatever. Our thoughts are running everywhere. Our old stories are playing on repeat. Our beliefs from childhood are still in charge of like our 45-year-old life or our 50-year-old life. And listen, I'm 49. I catch myself doing this all the time too. And most people don't even question the thoughts anymore. And then we wonder why nothing changes. At some point, you have to step in and become the deliberate creator of your thoughts. You have to discipline them. You have to decide that that outdated story and those outdated thoughts stop here. Not because you're pretending it never happened. We don't do that. This is really important, especially when it comes to trauma. We don't want to gaslight ourselves or pretend like trauma didn't happen. This is not toxic positivity. But at some point, the beliefs and stories and the thoughts that we created around our past life, they no longer serve us. So when we're ready to step into manifestation mastery, we have to stop telling those same old thoughts and beliefs. We have to stop believing them and letting them run amok on repeat, right? So how do you actually change this? Well, this is the good news. Your brain does not know the difference between a story that you're just inherited, one that you believe, or one that you create consciously, one that you decide to choose. Your subconscious will accept anything that you give it as true. Whatever you repeat often enough, it's just going to accept this as true. It only knows repetition. So what you rehearse wires. So the moment you start practicing a new story, even if it feels unfamiliar, even if it feels like, I don't quite believe this yet, your brain, it begins to reorganize around it. And your attention changes, your behaviors change, your decisions change. What you see actually changes. And eventually, your results change. So, let me give you a really simple way to start practicing this today. The first way to change things is actually to just catch the thought in action. So, when you hear yourself say things like, here I go again, or I can't get my business off the ground, or my relationships never last, I want you to pause. And I don't mean intellectually pause, I mean physically pause, like stop mid sentence, stop mid scroll, like stop mid thought, right? Mid spiral. It's almost like throwing a stick in a moving bicycle's wheel, right? I want you to feel jolted into awareness that I'm in this thought pattern again. I'm here again. It's like this, ooh, I'm starting to notice. That's the first step. And then just take one deep breath and ask yourself a different question. Not, is this logical? Not, is this historically accurate? Do I have proof that this is true? That's not the question we want to ask. We want to ask, does this story feel good in my body? Does it expand me? And then the real question is, do I want this to be true? Because at this stage of life, you don't need more evidence. You need a decision. Because here's something most people don't understand. Changing your story, it doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It just means refusing to let your past be the author of your future and to start practicing a new identity and not with fake bullshit affirmations or toxic positivity, but with deliberate rehearsal. So, for example, if your old story was, I should be further along than I am, this is a really common one for women, especially over 40. You could practice something like, everything I've lived has prepared me for what I'm building now. That's true, right? If your story was, my relationships never worked, you might practice something like, my past relationships have taught me what I really want and need in relationship. Do you see the difference? You're not lying to yourself. You're training yourself to orient into a new reality and a new story. And every time you repeat that, something really interesting starts to happen in your brain. It begins to rewire around itself. You see, there's this part of your brain that's called the reticular activating system. You probably heard me talk about it before. Most people refer to it as the RAS. And it acts like a filter for your attention, kind of like a spaghetti colander. And it decides what information is important enough to notice and what gets rejected or ignored. I mean, there's billions of pieces of information coming at us every day. So we have to have a system in place. And so when you start rehearsing your new identity, that filter, it physically begins to change. Your nervous system, it starts expecting different outcomes. And your attention, it starts noticing opportunities that match the story that you're practicing. And then your behavior starts to shift. And then slowly, but sometimes actually faster than you'd expect when you start doing this deliberately, your reality begins to like reorganize around itself. So here's the truth. Here's the tough love truth. You've been rehearsing a story for years. You've had beliefs for years, maybe decades. The only question I want to ask you is, are those beliefs intentional or are they automatic? Because the moment you start deliberately choosing the story that you practice, everything begins to change. Not overnight, but very often faster than you think. So this week, just start catching yourself in the story, throw that stick in the wheel and start to interrupt it, and then shift it with a story that you're ready to live. Because when you change that rehearsal, you change who you're becoming. And when you change who you're becoming, you become someone who can hold the things that you desire. Your life has to follow. All right, love. I know that was a little bit of tough love, but I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you next week.